Welcome back to the Let's Be Friends podcast. This is your host, Kara. I am here with a new friend, Buck Johnson, and he is the host of the Counterflow podcast. And we have actually met in person, so that's very cool. But we're brand new friends, so I'm excited to have this little Let's Hang Out with Buck. And he's actually going to kind of lead the show more because he is going to be interviewing me for his podcast, and we were doing a little like get to know each other. And I said, "Can I record it?" So here we are. Join Buck and I. I'm going to hand the mic kind of over to you. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kara. Thanks for doing this. So, for people listening, she's going to do an episode on my show, and we met in person, and I kind of got a brief backstory on what she's been through. And I hate the term journey, but it is what it is. It is one. So, I wish they could just have a cooler, less cheesy, um, less Hobby Lobby word than journey. But here we are.
How about
I
adventure?
venture.
Just as just as Hobby Lobby. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's and for I guess we're doing this. Her Patreon subscribers will hear this. We met in person and she explained, well, I have a podcast and Here Comes Trouble was her Instagram name. And as she said, I was like, damn, that sounds familiar. And then I went and looked. I'm like, wait a sec, I already follow you. And I had thought I had gone through some of your Instagram stuff and I thought I need to get her on here at some point. Oh, interesting. She lives in Austin. And then lo and behold, we're at a what would be somewhat of a church parking lot discussing things. So here we are.
Yeah, it's super cool and it's super, I guess, kismet for lack of a better word. Whatever words are just words. I like journey, and the new age can't claim journey or whatever. I always heard people go, "It's my journey, it's your." Anyways, but my good friend Dan, who was the host of the Cosmic Keys podcast, and everybody on here knows Dan, my friends here on the membership. He was like, "Kara, you have to go on this new podcast that I've been listening to that I really like. It's called the Counterflow podcast with Buck Johnson." And I've
Wow.
never met anybody else named Buck before. So you were like Buck in my book. Like you're the only Buck that exists in this world. And when we met in the parking lot and you were like, "I'm Buck." And I was like, you showed me your like podcast video and it clicked. First, I looked at the father that was talking on there, the priest. And then I realized that was you interviewing him. And it was just like, I'm like, this is who Dan was talking about here in the middle of nowhere, Texas. It was the most random thing. So it's like, it's absolutely God bringing us together. So
Oh
this is
yeah,
exciting to be talking.
100%. So I guess everyone listening except me is probably more familiar with your adventure, we'll say.
Yeah.
You, I think you told me you were a psychic medium. Did you say that?
Yeah. I was. I was. Do you want
Is
to know
that
how?
real?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's
Okay.
very real. Yeah.
Okay.
That's very real.
So
Yep.
you really, I guess I'm ignorant on some of that stuff, and my
That's
assumption
good. That's good that you're ignorant on psychic stuff. That means you didn't fall into the
never did.
divination. That's good.
Never did. I was an atheist for 20 years.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so the atheist in me would see Christianity as hokey and psychics as hokey, both
hmm
fake.
hmm
So I
I
was
used
like,
to I used to think psychics were fake too.
okay, so you really could see into,
Oh yeah.
wow, okay.
Yeah.
Well, will you talk about that?
Yeah. So it's kind of weird because I called myself an accidental psychic at first because I'm just a highly I think psyche like your senses, it's really just an amplification of senses. There's like different clairvoyant is someone who can like they
Mhm.
can like know things that are going to happen beforehand. There's clear cognizance, there's like clear like smelling. I don't know the names of all them. There's like basically people who have psychic smell where they'll smell something that's
Mhm.
not there, or you'll hear something that someone else might not hear. It's just the amplification of your senses, okay? So I'm a highly sensitive person, and I always believed in God. I just didn't know who he was. I didn't know about Jesus. I didn't grow up having any kind of church or religious background. So I started taking a lot of psychedelics in my early 20s, and I had amazing experiences. I loved it. At first, I just did it for fun. Um, I just thought but like about 10 years into doing them, I started hearing like a voice came to me. And it was the first time a voice ever came to me, and it was a spirit guide, and it was talk to me. I had my whole mushroom trip was like 4 hours that time. I closed my eyes and laid on a bed the whole time, but my eyes were wide open. And I write about this in my book. And I just thought it was the mushrooms. So
Hmm.
after that, I started taking more mushrooms. I started going deeper on my mushroom trips. I was very natural. I loved doing them. I smoked a lot of weed. I liked that kind of like psychedelic realm, which psychedelic. And then I started seeing spirits. They would appear and show themselves to me. Buddha would spirit saying it was Buddha would come to me a lot. And I just would have these weird moments where I can see now it was just like my psychic abilities kind of coming on through the spiritual realm, activating it. And like eventually I had this moment where I was like as like what you would be called a seer by the spiritual realm. And I wrote it. It's a sixth chapter in my book. It's called Once You See, You Can't Unsee. But I didn't get it. I didn't get that I was seeing the spiritual realm or that these were spirits or that this was anything. I thought it was hallucinations on mushrooms. And for the longest time, I figured everybody saw that. Everybody had these voices that came to them because I never talked about it to anybody. And eventually in 2020, after I'd been misdiagnosed bipolar for 8 years, interesting. There's this connection to people who are sensitive and you get to numb you and stuff. But anyways, that's the bipolar thing's a whole other story. But I found out I'd been misdiagnosed in 2019, so I got off pills. I was highly medicated on 20 a day near the end of my 8 years. Yeah, I was because
Pill,
they didn't work. So they kept
20
giving me
pills a
more.
day?
Hmm. Yeah,
My
yeah,
God,
yeah, yeah.
you must have been numbed out.
Yeah, yeah. There's like 4 years that are not that are like kind of blurred together. Yeah, I don't remember a lot from when I was I mean, I remember a lot, but like, writing I just wrote a memoir and like I had to go back and like relive it and think about stuff and there's like a lost kind of 4 years in there. But what
You
happened is
ever check your age, Kara?
I'm
You,
42.
okay. Where were you then?
Um, Austin. I've been living in Austin the last 18 years.
Okay. I
I'm
moved
from
off.
Michigan originally. So I spent half my life in Michigan, a little bit in London, England, a little in Costa Rica, a little Florida. Yeah, and then here.
Okay. I
So
got
I
to
was
Austin.
doing all of this stuff here. Like the misdiagnosis was here, most of the psychedelics was here.
Okay. Goodness.
S-
20 pills a day.
Yeah, I was sick. I was really sick. I was 80 pounds heavier than I am now. Uh-huh. And I had blood clot problems. I was gonna have to have a cluster of like cysts surgically removed. Like I was dying. I was dying and I wasn't getting any better. Like that's a whole nother I have like my story's kind of like multi-layered. It's weird. I have this whole mental health, like I get the mental health stuff. I understand Rockefeller medicine. I know what they're doing with mind programming. I was like a total liberal like before. I'm beyond I don't know, I'm not a conservative, I'm a nothing. I'm just kind of I don't know, I'm just you know, at this point like kind of anyways, but I'm getting off track, and that's something I do. I take people on tangents. So back to the psychic thing. 2020, I had an awakening and I met this group of people in Austin that were occultists, and I didn't realize it. And because I didn't really know what the occult was, because I didn't believe in demons or like spirits or anything like that. And I started becoming good friends with these people, and there was a girl from that group that became like one of my best friends, and we started doing psychedelics together. But she would open circles ahead of time, and which is calling in the spirits and summoning in these spirits. And we were trying to summon our star family and aliens because we wanted to be as psychic as possible. So we were calling in spirits to um activate us more. And I didn't. She told me I was a seer. That's how I found out because I started talking to her about stuff and she was like, "Oh my gosh." Like, and then I started seeing a psychic at that time too. And I never, like I told you before we started the interview, I didn't, or maybe right when we began, I didn't believe in psychics before because I need to experience something to believe it. I'm skeptical.
Mhm.
And so I started seeing this psychic who I call Charlotte in my book, and she also told me I was psychic. So during the 2020, I'm like talking to this psychic. I have this friend who's Ruby in the book, and they're like telling me I'm psychic. I didn't realize it. because I didn't know that there was a spiritual realm or anything. Like they told me about it. And I started having these crazy experiences and I started wanting more of it. Do you want me to keep going? Am I saying too much? Okay.
Yeah.
And so Ruby and I started doing more psychedelics together and opening circles, and it worked. We summoned in spirits and stuff, and I like they activated us.
Wow.
Like
That's so dangerous. Now, obviously, you know that,
oh
but
God, yeah, dude, I never would have done this stuff. Now,
yeah.
I believe this is like calling the fallen angels, demons, AI. Like I've learned, like it's all one and the same, really. Um, yeah, it's crazy the stuff I did. Like so eventually I started working as a psychic medium in 2021. I realized I was like, oh, this is the job I was meant for. This is easy. Like, because once I figured out what I was doing, I had been like being groomed by the spiritual realm for like a decade.
Hmm.
They were teaching me, they were like the abilities to be a medium. Essentially, they were showing me that in the psychedelic realm, and I didn't know it. I
Mhm.
call it the Luciferian labyrinth
Mhm.
in mine, I talk about it in my book, and also it's combined with the conspiracy realm. It's how it all kind of connects together. But I started working as a psychic medium, and 2 months into that, I have an experience with Jesus where a vision of Jesus came to me while I was doing my channeling, and I was like, oh no, Jesus is here, blah, because I didn't
Yeah.
believe in Jesus. I couldn't even say the name Jesus Christ comfortably. I didn't believe in him. I thought he was a fictitious character in a mythological book called the Bible, and all Christians were in cults. I had nothing. I was like Paul, not like killing Christians, but like blaspheming about them and making fun of all that's just like not, you know, I was
Mhm.
very lost. So when I had this, I thought it was like the ascended master, or whatever, the guys. Because there's this concept of Jesus in the new age that he's an ascended master. He's just the smartest person or like most loving person ever lived. But I didn't know about that Christians even thought he was God. I didn't even know that. And so when he came in, I had this moment where he came in. I'd never had something like that happen, and I just couldn't shake it. The Holy Spirit pierced me, like got me. Something happened over the next like month. I quit working as a channeler. I quit doing occult things. I stopped divination and I would fall to my knees and just start crying that Jesus was, oh my God, that was God. He was real. They killed him. They all that stuff. Like, and everything that I learned in my awakening, which was really fast because I was using the spiritual realm to amplify me. Like I would astral to project out of my body and mind meld with spirits. Like they would come in, I would allow them into my mind. They would like I would see stuff like hieroglyphics flashing in front of my face, and like I would wake up the next day and like see more color, or like I would understand. It was great. Like things were happening to me, and my psychic abilities were just getting like more and more strong and sensitive. And but also at the same time, I was starting to go crazy. I started believing I was a member of the Galactic Federation. This is the most embarrassing thing.
What is that?
Everything. Like I checked myself on the psych ward once. That's fine. I'll talk about that. But this is so embarrassing for me. But I have to tell people this is real. I
The
literally,
Galactic Federation.
what is it? Well, one of the government officials in Israel has talked about the Galactic Federation. The Galactic Federation is probably part of what was being channeled with Project Stargate. And
Oh,
Uri Ellis, who John Lennon actually contacted after he was doing a lot of psychedelics and had an experience with aliens and stuff. I thought I had met aliens. That's what I thought. Because before Jesus came, when I started, when G the Holy, it was the Holy Spirit that got me. It was Jesus and the Holy Spirit. Like I never read the Bible when I
mhm.
became a believer in Jesus. And I stopped. I was making like $200 an hour as a psychic. I stopped doing it. I couldn't do it anymore. I realized that God said you weren't supposed to do this. Like I was like, what? Oh my God, there's a spiritual realm. Oh, this isn't good. Like demons exist. And like it was great. It was like crazy. Um, but yeah, I started going crazy. I believed I was because what would happen is like spirits would jump in my body. I was a medium, and a medium is a vessel. I was
Mhm.
the perfect vessel for them, and they would jump in my body. And like one time, I was sitting in front of Ruby, and we were tripping on psychedelics. Like I could learn. It got to the point where I could channel and like harness it more when I was off psychedelics. But like on psychedelics was when I had like the crazy stuff happen, like the spirits jumping out of a portal in a tree into my body and telling me something, or this one time I was sitting with Ruby and a spirit jumped into me. I just knew, you just know things. Like
Hmm.
when you're a psychic, it's hard to explain. And it said, and I said out my mouth, because what they will do is they'll speak through your mouth. I said, you're looking at a member of the Galactic Federation in the flesh. I said that, and I look at Ruby and I go, did I just say that? And she goes, yeah. So something had possessed me. You get that how that it's crazy. And so like they were telling me that I was like special and like I was good. Like, that's what they do. They want you to feel special. It's preless.
Hmm.
Preless. If I'm saying that
Yes.
right.
Yep.
Orthodoxy gives you all the answers.
Yes.
Well, God, yeah. But like I literally was, and I was watching, connecting with channelers online too that were talking about the Galactic Federation, and it was these group of aliens from the Orion like area near Sirius, which ties all the way into the Masonic conspiracies. It's dude, it's this goes into this is wild stuff that I experienced because I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of this with
Hmm.
what's going on with the Project Stargate. But yeah, I like they told me I was part of their group and like and the star Sirius was getting my attention in the sky too. Like a lot of weird stuff looking back now. I mean, it's all anyways, I started going crazy. There's a chapter in my book that's called Oops, I Went Crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
What? Let me. There's a lot to. I hate this term to unpack here, but there's a place I have to go with this. Um, you do you have kids?
No,
Okay. Are you married?
no, I'm engaged. I've been with my boyfriend,
Congratulations.
my fiance, for 13 years.
Okay. What was he? I wanted to get another perspective during
He
like
thought I
what
was going crazy.
he did.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
He
Oh
into
yeah.
that
When I
stuff?
was what?
He into that stuff?
No, not like that. Not like me. Not at all. So yeah, he literally like when I first I started questioning like politics, then I started questioning COVID. Then I was like, there will be no vaccines around here. And that kind of stuff, he was like, what is going like he that was a lot for him to see me shift like that because I was like the other side of things, like legitimate, like January 2020, I was like, I'm gonna get on the black market and find a vaccine. Or like February 2020, I'm like, I'm gonna get on the black market where and find a vaccine early. I was crazy worried about COVID. To
Oh,
literally a couple of months later, about June 2020, I had this crazy experience where I was enlightened by the spiritual realm. It's in my book. It's called a chapter called Baptism. Um, and
why did
that was
people on the left that you were, why were you guys, you at the time, so obsessed with being scared of COVID and getting vaccines? Because me growing up, I've always been on the right or libertarian somewhere in the realm. And so anti-vax was always kind of there with me. And for a long time, it was people on the left that would be also anti-vax until 2020. And I was like, where did this switch happen? Why did you feel like you were so scared of COVID and wanted a vaccine?
because I thought that there were these little molecules in the sky of COVID that would like eventually make their way into my body and kill me.
COVID itself
Hmm.
and the
Yeah.
vaccine would help that.
Oh yeah. Oh
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, I
'Cause-
also believe that when I swallowed an antidepressant, it'd make me happy.
Fair enough. Okay.
I was mind programmed. It's
Yeah.
but I know mind programming's real because I was under it bad. And I don't know why, but God allowed me to wake up like he's like, sure, you like doing all these psychedelics, Kara. All right, eventually I'm going to use them for my glory, like a Joseph story, like what was intended for evil, God used for good. He's like, if you want to wake up that fast, well, you're going to write a book about it. You're going to talk about it online. Be a fool for Christ.
Wow.
Saint
So,
Xenia is my patron
yes,
saint.
that's
Yeah.
right. Right. At first, though, you found Christianity in more of the generic sense. Is that correct?
Yeah, I guess yes, that's probably a good way of a nice way of saying it, like Protestantism.
Yeah. I call it like
Yeah,
boomer churches.
yeah.
That's not the nicest thing either, but it's just what I grew up when I was a teenager going to. So,
So yeah, the way I found the Christianity is interesting because I became, like I said, I had never read the Bible. I'd only been to church a couple times as a kid with friends when I'd like stay the night at their house, and I was like, this is weird. There's someone like just lecturing you behind
mhm.
up whatever, and then hold on, some water. Okay, so then when I had my experience with Jesus coming into my life summer 2021 and I didn't have anybody to talk to about it, but I had just had this woman on my podcast, which I had just started, and her account online is Eyes on the Right. She's got a conspiracy account, and everybody loved having her on the show. She was a symbolism expert,
Mhm.
self-proclaimed, really into Hollywood symbolism. It was fun. She was also a Christian. So I
Okay.
had her back on the show again, and then I had her back a third time, and people were like, "You guys should start a podcast together." And we did. And she also ran a Bible study. So, first was like, I started doing the Bible study that she ran twice a week online, and she was like, just come to my Bible study. Like, don't go to church. All the churches are infiltrated by Masons. Other people are going to mislead you if you go to their Bible study. And we started this podcast together called Not So Secret Societies. And it got super popular really fast. And so she was my biblical guidance mentor, basically, like, became my best friend quickly. And my business partner. It was kind of weird. And I was a new Christian, and she was a lifelong Christian. And I just started listening to everything she said. I didn't know there were different denominations of Christianity. I didn't know that she was part of the charismatic.
Ah,
Haha. Yeah, I so that's the first kind of like Christianity I fell into, and I started questioning all of it. Like, so that's where I gave my testimony online, because we're doing this conspiracy podcast, and she was getting messages from her followers, who a lot of them were Christians, saying that I think your co-host is still in the occult. We're worried about that, because I was fresh out of the occult, and like they'd be like, she's got one eyes on her page, and da 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 da. They were digging into stuff, like, and I didn't have a very big Instagram following at that time. But so my co-host said, let's have you give your testimony on our show, even though our show was all about conspiracies, which I didn't realize, but because I didn't, they were QAnon conspiracies. When I was, you'll like this, when I was a brainwashed like liberal, I thought QAnon was Antifa, actually. I thought they were terrorists. I literally thought QAnoners were like Molotov cocktail throwing, like crazy. This is how brainwashed people are. They don't even know what they're like half the time what
right.
they're talking about. And so I didn't know. And when I woke up, it was like QAnon was kind of on a hiatus. So I started learning about like Epstein's Island and Pizzagate and all that stuff, without knowing it was QAnon. So
Mhm.
that's what our podcast was about. And Jody, my fiance, would be like, Kara, you've got a QAnon podcast. And I'm like, oh, what? No, we don't. And then, so anyways, that's the show. It was like that kind of stuff. And then suddenly I gave my testimony. I didn't know Christians gave testimonies. I didn't really know I had a strange one, but it went viral. And that's a big part of how I got my following online. But so I gave that testimony. The show was doing so good. We were like 13 on the Apple charts, on the arts charts at one point in time. Like,
Okay.
iHeartRadio wanted our show. Like, it was going really well. We launched a membership, and I started questioning the charismatic beliefs, and she severed all ties with me,
Mm,
and we ended everything. She didn't want to be my friend anymore. She kicked me out of the Bible study. So
mm,
that was my first like kind of like Christianity. And then I felt so burnt and kicked out of this like group, and confused, because she really taught conspiracy Christianity, like a lot of futurism and
mhm,
end times, like right now.
mhm,
um I started reading the Bible by myself, and I started having really powerful moments of like me and God, like just like really I started with the Old Testament. I started reading it. And then about a year later, a friend of mine in Austin was like, you should really come to my church. Just come. And I was really have going through a really tough time. It was Christmas. I was by myself. So I went to Austin Ridge in 20 it was like the end of 2022, beginning of 2023. And about actually, that was where actually, sorry, that was the same time that the right after the podcast ended and stuff. I had added a year in there. I don't know why. It's kind of trying to, sorry, get a lot in. Anyways, I went to Austin Ridge, and eventually by summer 2023, and like I had a girl editing my book at the time who was Reformed Puritan. Because after the charismatic stuff, I know after the charism, I've been writing this book, my memoir, Here Comes Trouble, during this whole time. And I had to get the charismatic voice out of my book. And so this Puritan reform, I didn't know how intense like a Reformed Puritan was, but she knew the Bible really well, and she knew how to scrub out the charismatic stuff. So that was awesome. But the problem was is she was really like, you need to get baptized now, you need to get married now, like kind of that's what she believed. So kind of feeling pressured, but we're like, all right, I'll do my outward proclamation of my faith and get baptized. So I did on stage like a TED talk at Austin Ridge, Protestant baptism,
Mega.
and mega church. Yeah. And then uh interestingly enough, we started studying Acts at Austin Ridge, and I'd never read it before. And it's all about Pentecost when the church was started.
Mhm.
And my friend Nick Hinton and I were researching church history for Let's Be Friends, and at the same time as learning about Acts. And I'm like suddenly like, okay, I've already seen so many differing opinions in Christianity. I see all these Christians arguing online. They're really mean to each other, and they've been some of the meanest people to me. Like they were picking me when I gave my testimony. I got picked apart by people so badly about just everything that I did. Like I call them Christian Karens. And I actually say that I started kind of becoming one too. Like I started kind of becoming programmed by that. But I started studying church history. I'm like, I need like to go to the first church, like to the beginning. So that's when I realized it was the first church was in Antioch, Turkey, and it was Orthodox. That was the
Mhm.
closest thing to what Jesus set up when he was here, when he created the church. Like, so I reluctantly looked up Orthodox churches and went to this one downtown Austin and was like, I'm going to be demonically attacked by all the graven images on the wall because I had this Puritan editor.
Oh, okay.
She was like, I got a gift. I got a cross sent to me from like someone and as a gift. And I told her how nice it was. She goes, it's not a crucifix, is it? And I was like, what's a crucifix? She's like, doesn't have Jesus on it, does it? You can't have any graven images of Jesus. And bless her heart, bless her heart. She's a sweet, sweet person. Fast forward though, I ended up having to fire her right. It's tough to say, but because what happened is I went to this Orthodox church and I never went back to Austin Ridge.
Mhm.
And I became a, and I start, so my book basically ends with me like coming into the Orthodox church and she was fact checking my final chapter. And how do you explain to somebody if God hasn't revealed orthodoxy to them yet? Like everybody believes what they believe is true, but I wasn't going to have my book fact checked and changed because of someone else's beliefs. So unfortunately, I had to hire another editor who was Orthodox, who
Oh,
scrubbed out and the Puritan, like the Protestant voice from my book because I was like brand new going into the Orthodox Church. I became a catechumen like the week before I just stopped writing my book. Like
when was
so
this?
May 2024, last spring. I've been a catechumen. So then I've been attending, yeah. So to get to how we met, I had been attending this other church, and I'm gonna leave out the names right now. Um, they won't baptize me. I'm going to be chrismated this spring, and I've decided I do want to have an Orthodox baptism because I don't feel the same about this. Is my personal opinion. It's not any judgment on anybody else's baptism. It's between you and God. I really feel in my heart I need to be baptized properly. Like in deep in my this is 6 months of praying. I spoke with the fathers at my church about this a few times. Like I was gonna be okay with not getting the baptism, but at this point I'm not.
Hmm.
And so I went out to this little church, and I don't want to say the name of it again because I just kind of want to I've said the names before and people kind of show up sometimes, and that's awesome. But I just really like my
Right.
relationship with God to be like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so I go to this little church and I talked to the father there and told him last summer that this church I'm currently at won't baptize me. Would you baptize me here? And just yes. It's just yes, yes, yes. I was just like shocked, and I ended up giving my testimony to him and crying and feeling really comfortable. But I went back to the other church in Austin, and it was convenient and it's beautiful, and I'm already involved, and maybe I don't. I'm being really prideful about needing to be baptized. All this is silly. It was in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Yet the Didache says we should be dunked 3 times. We're supposed to have like our feet washed clean, have prayers of like deliverance done over us. All these things and in the Orthodox belief, it's we believe in one baptism. It's in the Nicene Creed. And you've done episodes on your podcast even recently about this. And so we're not that's why they're like saying like no, we're not going to give you another baptism because you already had one. But it wasn't this to me a real true complete baptism and I need it. It's important to me. So I did decide recently it was time to go start going to their church. And I went back and talked to the father, and he remembered me. And he said, "Yep, we'll baptize you, Lazarus, Saturday." And then the next week, you came out in the parking lot and showed me the video that you had done for your podcast where you were talking. Who was that? Which father was
Father
that?
Peter hears.
Yeah, and you're asking him about baptism, and that's so
I
amazing.
specifically said, what if there's a catechumen or an inquirer that's like, I want to get baptized, and the priest goes, no, we're just going to chrismate you, and he's like, well, you need to find a new church. That's pretty simple. And when I had heard you talking to my priest, and I remember that. And then I actually did some work with him, and I brought that up, and he goes, "Yeah," and he kind of told me what you had said. And I said, "Funny, I just interviewed Father Peter Hears, and I asked him that exact question, and he said this." And my priest goes, "Yeah, he's right, and that's what Kara did, and that's why she's coming here."
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
a lot of priests are like, oh no, you shouldn't do that, or not a lot, but some. And I don't get why, if someone says, would you please baptize me? Why on earth would an Orthodox priest say no?
Well, if you went to a Mormon church, they'll baptize you again.
Right. But if we can't,
No, it's pick or choose again. It's the same thing that made me leave the New Age. It's the same thing that made me leave Protestantism. I'm singing at Orthodoxy now. And it's just crazy. It's crazy to me. It's a baptism. And it they call here so God pulls away. I've heard that God will pull away his grace when there's heretics around, or
Mhm.
pull away his mercy when there's heretics around. He's gonna go take it where they're it's and how can we call some of these? I'm sorry if not trying to offend anybody here, but it's probably going to. But I do believe a lot of these Protestant denominations are there have a lot of heretical beliefs. And
Yeah.
so somebody who's not even a priest, like with apostolic succession, with the apostolic blessing to Jesus Christ, baptize me in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. I was thinking in my head that this was just an outward proclamation of showing the world my faith, because that's what they tell you in Orthodoxy. And because when I gave my testimony, like, had like 40, 50,000 downloads, like I was getting seriously like I got like tons of messages from people that my story touched their heart or helped them. Like, all glory to God. I'm just someone who made a ton of mistakes, crazy story that God can use. But I wanted to show all of them too that had been watching my journey, that I was like, look, I'm getting baptized. I've done it. Like, this is me my outward public thing. That's not what I'm thinking about baptism anymore. I
Right.
was deep, deep in the occult. I did stupid things. I literally was possessed. I had suicide ideations in the past, bad. They came back last summer, bad. And I was like, what the heck is this? Like, I thought I was done. When is this going to be done? Because I believe that's these are demonic voices, daemons call them, programs. Yeah. And they came back this summer, and that's when I went to the father at my current church and I told him about it. And I actually said, do I need an exorcism? Like,
Yeah.
and he was like, well, we don't just go straight to that, like, well, and he dealt with he goes, first, let's take some holy water to your house, bless your house, and kind of go from there. But really, like, I believe that baptism should take care of that. I
Yes.
never, if that, it just, I don't know.
Yeah. There's prayers of exorcism prayers read over you, in the proper manner of doing that. Um, and it's weird because I can't, as a baptized Orthodox Christian, I can't go to a Catholic service and do communion with them. I get that. So then why on earth would a priest go, well, you can't do communion with them, but the baptism you did with them's fine? Like, well, that's not consistent then. So how about none of it's fine and we only do it within the Orthodox Church? That seems to be more uh, logical and consistent to me.
Yeah, no, what you just said just makes so much sense. And I reached out to another father online is on Instagram. Sorry, I can't remember his name, but it's Noetic Springs is his account. And I've been enjoying his content. And I honestly, I don't listen to podcasts. I don't watch YouTube videos. I don't even really take in content on social media. I'm just more of a creator, content creator. I think I focus most of my time on that. And also, I started a new job recently and I'm just working all the time. I don't have time, but I see his stuff every once in a while. And I wanted another opinion. He's Greek Orthodox. So I thought I want that opinion on this baptism thing. He gave me the same answer that the father that you interviewed did. If somebody wants a new baptism, you do it.
Yeah.
Because think about it, but faith can move mustard seed faith can move a mountain.
Mhm.
God he wants us when you become a new follower of Christ, he tests your faith.
Hmm.
He
Yeah.
does. It's one of the first things he does. He wants to make sure it's real and it's your belief. You can have to confess unbelief. Unbelief can be an issue. You know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
think about the woman who touched the priest or Jesus's garments, and he goes, "Who was it? I felt that
Yes.
power leave me." She was saved by her belief. I have chills right now. So if I don't believe my baptism was sufficient enough for me, please baptize me. Like,
Right.
please. I
Yeah.
want this is something I've been mulling over in my deep in my body like for months now. And like it's just crazy and it's just crazy to me that they won't and the, yeah. So I'm
Mhm.
so grateful and it's
So now you're
amazing.
getting it.
Yes, it's amazing. So like and us meeting too is just the timing. It's just so much God moments. Like I've been praying for who's my patron saint recently. And it became really my friend Nick was like early on, he's like, I think Saint Xenia of St. Petersburg is your patron saint. She's a fool for Christ, and so are you. And I was like, I'm not a fool for Christ. I didn't really get it. And then like I've now like recently really get it. Like I mean I went crazy. Like I'm gonna now I'm online like telling people I went insane, but Jesus is the way out. I'm a fool for Christ in its own way. And when I came to the church that I'm attending now, same was you, is a Russian Orthodox church. And my great grandmother was an orphan from Russia. And what I so I remember two little things, religious kind of things from my childhood, and one was a Buddha statue that my mom had, and one was this little picture of Mother Mary. I would go
Mm.
up to the Buddha statue and rub its belly for good luck. I didn't know who the picture of the woman was, but I remembered it. When I became into the Orthodox Church, I remembered that Mary icon. That's what it is. It says Theotokos, it's Mother Mary. So my mom has it. So I contacted her, and I was home in this over the summer in Michigan visiting, and I was like, what about that Mary icon? And she's like, oh, it's in the basement in a box. Let me go get it. And so, which is just, oh, we venerate
Yeah.
these icons and kiss them and like, oh, mom, get it out. So she goes, you can have it. So I looked at it and she goes, it hung above my crib when I was a baby. Your grandmother, brought that over from Russia. And I opened it up and I looked at it. It's our mother of perpetual help,
Mhm.
and that's an Orthodox and Catholic icon, actually. It's got both things on it. It's old. I open it up and I realize it's got a note in it that it's touched the original. So it's a third class relic. Yeah, the one in Rome, and which
Okay.
has worked miracles. It's like the
Yeah.
most popular icon of Mother Mary holding Jesus. And, anyways. So my mom gives this to me and I take it home. And this was in June 2024 when I'm starting to have suicide ideations again. And I take it into the house, and this house that I'd been living at for 7 years was the one where I really deeply got in the occult and
Mhm.
opened portals, and demons were around, okay, at that house. And um I bring this icon into the house, and it was like that was when I met with Father David. I bring holy water home. I bless the house. I come back in. Like I just did it on my own and went outside. And it was like a weight had lifted. Like I could see like a gray fog had lifted from the house and the voices went away. And for about a month, and I have this icon up in my living room. And all of a sudden, like I'm not ready to talk about it all yet. It's going to be in my next book, but some stuff happened with me and my neighbor that was insane, that literally, but like everything, this swirl of events got me to move out of that house. And
Okay.
I'm actually right now living on my own. Jody, my fiance, he's living on his own. I just right now as a catechumen, I needed to live on my own. It's a purification stage. It's crazy. Like I need tons of purifying. Like this is what God wanted. And mother, I believe that icon, the power of that icon got me out of that situation. And it's something I'm like literally like going to be writing very soon. I truly, truly, truly believe in the miraculous power of icons.
Oh yeah.
Unbelievable. Like, yeah. And so, anyway, so this Russian connection, and then I'm now at a Russian Orthodox church, and I was Saint Xenia. I think she brought me to that church.
Wow. How
Yeah,
okay. And here we are.
yeah, and here we are. And her Saint Day is coming up.
Yes. What does your fiance think of all this part of it?
He thinks it's my thing.
Okay.
Unfortunately, he did go to the old. He went when I started going to his mom is a very bold lover of Jesus. She does attend a Protestant church. So he knew about Jesus, but it never stuck because that's what happens with a lot of these, Protestant or Catholic things that pushes people away. So
With
he
you.
believes in Jesus, knows Jesus, in his way. And he started going to Austin Ridge with me a little, but then I left. And
Mhm.
then he came to the other Orthodox church a couple times, but it's just not where he's at right now. And it's something that I really struggled with for a while. But one thing that I've loved and learned from my year now attending an Orthodox church is that you're supposed to focus on your own salvation and just trust that God's gonna. It's a relief because that evangelizing that you see, like, and some of these things are just like, as if God can't move mountains to help. He doesn't need us.
Right, right.
So I'm just kind of like right now, just letting God iron things out in my life. That
When
makes
you first started attending the one downtown in Austin, your first experience with it, were you like, what the heck is this? Or like, oh no, this is it. This is better than Austin Ridge. What were your thoughts as far as comparing the two?
walking in, it was at like 9:30 in the morning and I was like, I can't wait to get to Austin Ridge at 11:30 so I can have my coffee. And because you don't have coffee, at least the one I was going at, it was like you didn't bring food in. And so I walked in, and the first thing that they have when you walk, it's this beautiful church downtown. It was built in the 1920s. It's like what you think a quintessential church is going to look at. To me, Austin Ridge felt like driving into a college campus.
Yes.
Like I was like literally like it seated like 2,500 people. This church could hold like 250. So I walked in, there's candles right away. And I love candles, like and lighting candles and incense. Like before I was in the occult, I love just lighting candles and incense. It's just always been something that I would sit outside and do. And so I walk in, I see all these candles, and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And then you walk into the church, it's like into another room. It's just icons, beautiful art all over the walls. And it's just everybody's standing. So I stand, yeah, and I'm like, I knew to expect this standing thing. And I'm standing there though, and all of a sudden I hear in my head, you're spiritually sick. And I was like, I'm like, what? Like, why am I one? Oh, weird. I'm hearing like something in my head. Two, why am I hearing I'm spiritually sick? Because I've
Mhm.
been baptized. I
Mhm.
know Jesus. I'm saved. I was believing hardcore and once saved, always saved too. At that time, I thought that was a big part of the falling out actually with my co-host was
Mhm.
that started believing that you couldn't lose your salvation. She believed you could. So props to you on that, co-host. Like I'm back to you, I don't know what it is really. Like St. Paul says, run that race for the rest of your life. But um, so I go in there, I hear I'm spiritually sick, and whatever, I leave, but I don't go to Austin Ridge that afternoon. And then my friend tells me, who's going to an Orthodox church, she's kind of on the same journey. She's your favorite wench online. She was Bleeds No Psyop before that, and Lala Beams before that. She had a podcast. She went from New Age into Protestantism into Orthodoxy.
Okay.
And she was like, she's a little ahead of me. And she's like, that bread at the end, you can go up, it's blessed bread, but you can have some of the leftover blessed bread. So I went back a second time the next week because I was intrigued. And it was so different. So different. So I went up for the blessed bread at the end and I got it, ate it, turned the corner, and all of a sudden I heard in my head the Protestant spell. And it was like another bam moment. And I saw it. As somebody with fresh eyes on Christianity, having just attended a TED Talk church for the last year, like seeing how, I mean, the podium or whatever that the priest, the pulpit wasn't even introduced into the church till like, I think around the Protestant Reformation or just before that. Like the whole setup was so different. And it's just like, I was like, oh my, like it's hard to even put words to it because I like, it was like, a lot of my awakening just kind of where I just got things all of a sudden. And it was something about that blessed bread. And I was like, this is how church was supposed to be. This isn't crazy here either. Like, I don't have to like listen to that music beforehand. They believe in sola scriptura in Protestant churches, but their music's not.
Right.
I couldn't get into that. And then I learned about sola scriptura and I was like, wait a second, like why am I just doing these 66 books? Why are these other books off limits? Why can't I talk about the church fathers who actually wrote the Bible? Like there were 300 years there wasn't even a printing press. People are using icons to tell stories and also oral tradition to share the word. They have martyrs keeping these saints were martyrs keeping the words of Christianity alive. And they wrote the Bible. Like, what's there? What else? They must have more wisdom. I mean, God, inspired whatever. It's all God, God breathed it out, everything, all him. But I started opening up to all of this and everything started changing like pretty rapidly. I went the second or the third time I went to church was Forgiveness Sunday.
Mhm.
And at that church, there were like 300 people circled around the edge, and
Yeah.
you go around, and I didn't know anybody. I was there with an old friend of mine who's ironically, we're not friends anymore. She's still at that church. She actually came with me to the church that we're at, and
Okay.
we went, and it's a natural, God's just a natural partner, just everybody's meant to be somewhere else. Anyways, yeah, I just kept going to the Orthodox church and I did my first Lent and was in fasting, going to church like 3 days a week and like really finally being like, this is what this, I was actually getting the answers and like the beliefs of what I was learning about Orthodoxy and theosis and just God and heaven and hell was finally making sense. And like, I was getting like all the clarity. I'd been praying to God. I was like, God, please don't leave me confused again. Like, I already, like, first I had to wake up to culture and society and Rockefeller medicine and every single thing's been fucked with. Every once in a while, I still swear, okay? I've gone through stages where I wasn't. I mean, when I do. Anyways, God, He ask and thou shalt receive, seeking you shall find. Seek first the kingdom of righteousness, and all else will be added unto you. And God will straighten your crooked ways. And mine were totally wrong.
How do you know so much about this stuff? You're able to quote verses quite simply.
Um, I don't know. I just I'm hardcore. I'm an extremist. Like I'm either not paying attention or I'm all the way in. And when like I'd been searching my whole life, I always used to be like, how can I move my arm? Hello? Anybody else in the room wondering how we're breathing? Like I was just wanted to know so badly that there was more to life than just this moment. I started having like awakenings that I was in a body when I was in my 20s, probably. Psychedelics really amplified things for me. And then I did DMT one time and wrote a chapter in my book about it. And I met an entity. Like I completely blasted off. I was so sensitive that like anybody who did mushrooms with me would be like, oh my God, that's the craziest mushroom trip I've ever had. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Sorry, I took you deep with me. Like I just go deep. I'm
Okay.
an extremist. I go, holy things are the extreme things. They are the
Yes.
different, they're found at the edge. I walked the edge as far as I could. And um so what am I getting at here? I guess
How do you know so much? So you went like from one
oh
edge.
yeah, right. So I went to the same I started reading the Bible that way. I started studying Christianity that way. When fell into the rabbit hole, I was the same way on that. Like I used for probably like the spiritual realm, I'm telling you like a lot of the stuff I learned about the occult and conspiracy was from kind of working with the spiritual realm. Like I could ask these spirits questions. I was asking so many questions about conspiracies and stuff. They scripted them all. um, anyways, so then when I got the Jesus piece, it was a missing piece of the puzzle. I started reading the Bible. It was with all the answers, and I went hardcore into it. And with the other knowledge that I had like the evil side. I knew all of that, and that they talk about God talk. That's part of the story is
Mhm.
Cain and Abel.
Mhm.
And so, this is what I was searching for. Oh yeah, I was telling you about the DMT trip because that was when I learned that something more existed outside of that we had a soul and we had a body and that you could exist outside of it because I completely blasted out of my body. So that was a huge awakening. And then like realizing like mind programming and the spiritual realm and just Christianity, I had a lot of knowledge from literally just my whole life, really trying to learn. And I don't know how I know it all. That's I don't know that much, honestly. Like I don't feel like I know that much. Now I feel really prideful right now that I'm just
No,
sitting here like a
no,
narcissist.
not at all. I just the way that it can just roll off your tongue of a lot of people you haven't even been baptized yet and you're quoting
Just
scripture barely.
imagine.
It's nice though.
Oh,
Um, are you getting baptized Lazarus Saturday this year coming up?
yes. Yes, that's what we talked. Yeah, because I've been a catechumen for a year.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's what Father said, And but I mean, he and I are going to sit down and talk too. Like I hope to be. I mean, that's what I was going to be with St. Elias.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to be sooner. When I first got there, I was like, because I went from thinking that the Eucharist was a satanic ritual, like cannibalistic, bloodthirsty. Literally, I was in my backyard in 2020. I remember exactly where I was standing, and I wasn't even on psychedelics, but this thought dropped in my head, and it was like, the image of like a Catholic person in front of Jesus, like with the crown of thorns, like, duh, and they're like drinking his blood and eating his body. And I'm like, oh my God, they're cannibals. And there's all these conspiracies about the Catholic Church and everything. So I fit right in. But not, and then I went, since I had that piece of blessed bread, I have desired the Eucharist, and I don't even know. It's crazy, like how I'm like, at first, I was like, I need it now. And I went to the father of that church at coffee hour, like the third week, and I was like, so I'm ready to be chrismated. And he was like, it used to take 3 years to be a catechumen minimum. Like, no. And then once I got into the purification process, I was like, oh my gosh, St. Mary of Egypt had to wait like 17 years or something. Like, Kara, chill out. You probably would have internally combusted had you taken the Eucharist. Like, you weren't ready for that at all. You are not ready to have Jesus. Like, literally, like, have some respect, clean your house before you have God over.
Wow. Okay. Okay. What what do your parents think?
They're happy for me. They've watched me struggle. I had a lot of mental struggles like in my 20s and stuff. And my mom actually said to me like that this is the calmest and most peaceful she's ever seen me in my life, and it makes her really happy. And they're just happy that I'm doing what's good for me, that works for me. Like they've all watched me. Like they knew about the psychedelics and all the crazy. I'm like an open book.
Yeah.
They knew.
Right. So yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, like they just yeah, they're happy for me. And now my dad is cool. He texted me the other day like something about Jesus. He's contemplating and questioning things. My mom is actually Jewish. She converted about 15 years ago.
Okay.
So I'm not if she had been Jewish when I was born, I would have automatically been. But
Yes.
my stepdad was Jewish, and so she converted so she's not really like, she's Jewish, but she doesn't go to temple. She doesn't
Right.
love you, mom, but
Yes. Yes. Has your outlook on political things changed with Orthodoxy?
um well, I'd say before I came into Orthodoxy, I'd already like realized it was all a puppet show. I That's what I think. I think that like it's all, yeah. And so it just made me like care less about like what Orthodoxy's done overall has made me care a lot less about conspiracy. I'm more like I should really focus on my salvation. Like I used to spend in 2021, like I would spend like 10 hours a day like researching and working on podcasts and doing deep dives and like making content and on conspiracy stuff. And like what started happening too, like I was obsessed with the demonics. Once I realized demons were real, I was like, I know they're real. Like, and because I had these experiences, so now I want to tell everybody about it. And I was learning all this stuff about demons and like that, like MK Ultra and like satanic ritual abuse and all this dark stuff. And the whole everything became demonic to me, and it overtook me. And I realized like you can't do no like actually the verse in the Bible that talks about like expose the darkness, but have no take no part in it is like the second part of the verse that nobody ever talks about. It says like don't even talk about it. You know what I'm talking about? I'm not quoting that one perfectly, but people love the first part. Bible says expose the
Yeah.
darkness, but you don't read the second half of it.
You
It
got to
says
be
that, but
careful
take
with
no
quoting.
part in it and don't talk about it, even talk about it. So like, and I'm not perfect. I still am into conspiracy stuff and looking at what's going on in the world, but I spend a lot less time filling my mind with that. And instead, like praying, like working on noetic prayer, like trying, is it hesychasm? I never say that right.
Hesychism.
Yeah, where you're like, you want to like be praying all the time and like the Jesus prayer and just like trying to repent and not be like, I am so grateful that God is showing me my faults. I needed to see.
Wow.
Stuff. The bitter cup. May it be blessed.
That is for dang sure. Um, have you had pushback with people that, another phrase I hate, consume your content with Orthodox stuff? Have you had
Oh
pushback?
yeah. Oh yeah. I've like It's funny because when I started my Instagram, it was in 2020, and it was because I wanted to self-publish my book, and I was like, no one knows me, so that's the reason I started an Instagram so I could because of my book.
Mhm.
And then I was in the occult, so I had an audience at first that was like watching me because I was teaching them about psychic stuff and all that, and then I became like a Jesus freak, like charismatic into deliverance, like kind of talking about deliverance and stuff, and then. I had that I lost like I think and then I like started like questioning all of that and had the falling out with my co-host. I started questioning Trump. I would like make a post about saying like Trump's part of this too, lose 500 followers in 200 in 2 hours and get death threats sometimes. So I've seen my I and I at first it used to really bother me because I'd lose audience as but I'm always gonna even if it I've been wrong. I know I've been wrong a lot. I'm still wrong about stuff. I'm not perfect. I'm just trying to learn. But my view, people will say your viewpoints have changed a lot, Kara. It's like, yeah, keep up with me. Like, like just that I hope yours too. Like we should
Yeah.
be learning and changing and that should hopefully happen for the rest of our lives. So I'll gain and lose a lot of people. Was much more popular when I was Protestant. I lost a big part of my like membership at that but I knew and now I'm saying this out loud like I've been willing like even when I gave up secret societies and said okay no I disagree with you that's okay we'll go different ways I have given up a lot of money
Hmm.
for this path and that's okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I know how that goes. I agree with
Yeah.